Good evening. This is Gabriel Aria, author of the book A Christian Perspective on Islam's Origins, Its Religion, Founder, and Practices. I hope everyone is doing well at the sound of my voice. Thank you for listening in to this podcast. I am about to get some training. I'm heading down to one of the states this week, and I will start getting a little bit of training on videos so that this can be a little bit better, more entertaining. Uh, but anyway, nevertheless, I want to talk to you about last week's events, Bondi Beach, Sydney, Australia. But I also want to talk to you about a couple of other events, like uh, the cancellation of the New Year's Eve celebration in France by Macron because he is afraid of Muslim aggression. Also, the anti Jewish protest that occurred in Amsterdam, right? By Muslims, of course. Why am I bringing these things up? Because before I get into the Bondi Beach, I want you to understand something. Wherever Islam rears its head in any Western country, there are patterns that begin to develop and that we can recognize. Islam is not in a country to assimilate the culture. Islam is there to dominate the culture. When they are weak militarily, they do it through using our own laws, right? Our politics. They use our politics, they use our constitutional laws to suppress our laws, and then to strip away the rights, especially freedom of speech, right? Of expression, freedom of the press, right? You see all kinds of flags on YouTube and so on. It's ridiculous when Islam comes into a country, the patterns that develop um, in social media, harassment, um, just so many negative things that are associated with Islam. It's not being a bigot, it's not being prejudiced, it's just what you see. It's a reality. It is something that is observed. Um, Another thing that I would like to say is that many Americans, and I want to talk about Americans, us. Yes, I am an American here in the US. And we are many times willfully ignorant and forgetful. For example, we had our own incidents, right? In California, we had our incidents um, post nightclub shooting, right, in Orlando 2016. We had the idiot Muslim over at New Orleans who drove his truck through a crowd on purpose, right? New Year's 2025, this year, New Year's. Um, and we had the foiling of a terrorist plot. It was going to be a Halloween massacre performed by two Muslims. Yeah, from Michigan. From Michigan. Okay. Um, why do I say these things before I get into Bondi Beach? Because the more you begin to allow Muslim migration into a country, the more common these kind of incidents become. When they let in all these Somalis in Minnesota, when they just dumped them there were women that would be washing their cars in the garage or whatever if their husbands were away um, working or whatever, and those were at-home moms or wives. They were being harassed sometimes by groups of 10, 20, 30 Somali Muslims. Because the key word here is Muslim. Um, that were walking around harassing women. Okay? The question is, why does that happen? Excuse me. Why does that happen? There is an issue. The issue is Islam. Um, Islam is made up of what you would call a moderate Muslim, right? I would call a radical Muslim. Because a moderate Muslim or a radical Muslim is a Muslim that does not follow the Quran to the letter and that does not live the Sunnah of Muhammad. Those are the Hadith, right? Or the teachings of their scholars, right? The Tafsir, Al-Jalalain, Ibn Kathir, right? Al-Qurtubi. They don't follow those teachings. And they really are not big on Islamic jurisprudence, Sharia, right? Whether it's from the Hanafi, Shafi, Hanbali, Maliki, right? Schools of jurisprudence. They don't really follow that. They kind of like wing it, man. Like some Christians that don't know anything about Christianity, but because it's part of their social fabric, they grew up going to church. They don't know anything about Jesus. And which is why so many of them fall into atheism, secularism, and especially Islam, right? They don't know anything. Well, a lot of Muslims are like that, but they are a lot stronger in the sense that they know how to rattle the cages of Christians theologically, even though they don't know anything about their own Quran or their own Hadith or their own tafsir, to be honest, because when you present it to them in a debate, they go crazy. They wind up like hamsters in a wheel, going in circles on the same arguments. For example, like the Islamic dilemma, they just go in circles. They can't do anything else, right? They have no outs, right, to defend Muhammad and their false god Allah. So what they do, they throw them under the bus just to defend what they believe. And in reality, they don't even know what they believe. They think they know. They know nothing about the Bible, but they dare to challenge you because most Christians, like I said, give them simple things, right? Simple doctrines, right? Soteriological or theological, and they fail. 100. They don't know much about it. But the patterns that develop with Islam around the world is something that is not negligible. It's something that can be seen just straight out. Let's talk about Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. For those that have gone there, I mean, it's a nice place. There were two Muslims. What bothers me and what's so peculiar about this case is that these two Muslims were not that it was the Pakistani origin, because the Middle East is riddled with Islamists. You call them Islamists, I call them Muslims. They're not radicals, they are Muslims. Again, a radical Muslim is one who can live at peace with Christians, with Jews, with Hindus, with Buddhists, with secularist atheists. Those are radical Muslims because they're moderate. They're not trying to kill you, murder you, sexually violate your wife or your children. Not those. Those, it's not exactly that they assimilate because, of course, when they give their zakat, which is their offering at the mosque, it still goes to jihadist causes, right? It's just a fact of life. I know that Americans do this, you know, and don't want to say anything, but this is the reality of Islam and Muslims. Of course, they will still support. I mean, in the UK, in Europe, it is a fact. There's a high percentage of Muslims that would not report if there was going to be a jihadist attack, a terrorist attack in a European country. They would not report it. They would not report their brothers, their sisters, their cousins, whatever. They would not report their fathers. They wouldn't. And then they act completely ignorant of what they were going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, in Islamic families, everything is known first. Then they go out and do what they're going to do. So don't like, oh my God, no. No, this is the way it is. Okay? All right. But this was a father and son team. That should bother you. Because that's what's being imported in the West. The United States is not where Australia is. It is not where the UK or France is. But we're getting there, buddy. And the more and more you import illegal immigrants, or you allow illegal immigration or massive illegal immigration, and you also allow legal migration of those who hate our country and our way of life, the West, our Judeo-Christian principles, this is what you're going to get. The sexual predations against women, the violence against Christians and Jews, and every non-Muslim. This is what you're going to get in America. What happened at Bondi Beach. We already had a taste of it, right? And more of that is going to develop. Okay? Because Muslims will use our laws. Just look at Texas. It's happening there. Okay? Now, Kim Paxton, thank God, he's fighting back. And some Republican politicians are fighting back, right? Like Ted Cruz in Texas. But let's be honest. Most Democrats are just sellouts, right? Marxist liberals that go to the Arabic proverb, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. When it comes to Islam, they think they're going to ride that tiger. They think they're going to be able to control Islam. Just look at what happened to Iran. What did the Khomeini, Ayatollah, do, right, to the Marxists that helped them get into power when they got rid of the king? He killed them, or he exiled them. Okay, but this was a father-son team in Bondi, Australia. They targeted Jews, but other people were killed. Now, the odd thing also was that in the beginning, the guy, the hero, and he is a hero. I don't take anything from the man who stripped the older shooter from his gun, the father. He stripped him from his gun, but notice he pointed it at him, but he did not shoot him. They said at first he was a Maronite Christian, but then they find he's a Muslim. He is a radical because he basically took the killings or the opportunity to kill from the man, but however, the son shot at him. And then the father still joined the other guy. That Muslim showed mercy to the killer Muslims and got shot for his troubles. Is that what we want in our country? Is that what we're importing? Yes, you are. Okay? New Year's, New Orleans, we had another fool. Okay? Shamsuddin Jabbar drove a truck, okay, in a crowded Bourbon Street. Killed people. We had the Post nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida. We have a short-term memory, right? We want to make ourselves more merciful than God. But the truth of the matter is, Islam is a threat. Do we love Muslims? Yes. As a Christian, I am here to admit, I am a Christian. I admit that I love Muslims, but I don't love them so much that I'm going to love them into hell. I rather tell them the truth about their false prophet and their false God, Allah, than to love them into hell by not saying anything. I rather love them out of it. Tell them the truth. Let them judge for themselves. This is what you should be doing as a Christian, and stop being a coward. Many of the churches are not preaching anything about this. Yes, you should preach soteriological messages. What does that even mean? Salvific messages about salvation. Yes, we should be talking about holiness. Yes, we can do that. Sanctification. We can talk about these things for sure. We can talk about the love of Jesus, but there is a time for everything, according to Ecclesiastes, right? There is a time for everything, according to Solomon, the wise. This is not the time right now to talk about love settles all. No. You can show love by standing up for your people, by defending your children, by defending your wife, by defending your family, by defending your countrymen, and stop being a coward. I'm talking to Christians first because I'm a Christian, but I also talk to the Jewish people, and I also talk to every other American, right? I don't care what's your ethnicity, whether you are of Hispanic heritage or African heritage or European heritage or Asian heritage or Arabic heritage or Indian heritage or Indo-Asian. I could care less. If you are an American, stand up for America, right? Defend your country, defend your countrymen, your people, your families. How do we do that? Am I saying to go on a rampage? No. So don't get my words twisted either, like some fools on the political left would do, Marxists, and many Muslims who cannot assimilate to our laws. What am I saying? Educate your children first. Because making people aware of what Islam actually is and what it teaches, it starts in the home first. Okay? Teach your children about the dangers of Islam, of its religious ideologies, about its philosophical ideas, which are not many, but because they're illogical, to be honest. Even the theology is pretty illogical, right? The first thing they go to always is, tell me about Trinity. Well, I can tell you about the Trinity, but first you will tell me about Tawheed, right? One of, unification of what exactly? But that's for another day. Let me tell you something that is familiar with Islamic immigration into Western countries. The violence that you saw on Bondi Beach is small compared to every other thing that has happened all over the UK. And I don't mean to demean those people, and we pray for them. We pray for our Jewish brothers and sisters that were killed and the children, because these people, these Muslim shooters, have no shame whatsoever. They believe the Quran. They believe the Hadith. They believe the Tafsir. They look up the Sirah of Muhammad and think of him as the model citizen that they should emulate, the model man. And I don't know what Islamic women are thinking, that you can be so easily replaced by just saying talak. Talak, talak, talak. You're divorced. You don't need papers or anything. And then the Islamic woman has to go sleep with another man in order just to come back to that man so that she can see her kids. What are Muslim women thinking when they marry these creeps? It is ridiculous. But it is something cultural. It is embedded religiously. And it's something that really you need to know, just be able to debate. If you can, at least we still can in our country. We can still debate. But, Muslims will use constitutional laws, amendments in our freedoms to suppress our freedoms. How do you know this? Look at the site Religion of Peace, for example, .com. You can't get into that from Google. They just banned it because they say it's spewing Muslim hate. That it's completely, against. Well, not if those acts and what they talked about could be verified by Islamic sources and the news around the world. Islamophobia. Islamophobia is a term that is used just to shut down discussion of things that are verifiably true. Observations that cannot be denied. Right? But a phobia is an unrealistic phobia of something. But the Quran, if you read the Quran, I've read it 3 times. It's true that it's like if it was written by a 6-year-old. But even in Arabic, it is a book full of contradictions. There are verses that say it is clear, and then it says there's some verses that no one knows. And so on. We can get into its doctrines another day, because usually I do studies, but I'm not doing a study today. We're just talking. The last 3 videos, all I've been doing is talking. Not so much any kind of real study on Islam and its writings. But I will get back to that once I make my videos a little better and get down with the technology. Here's another thing. One of the patterns, or one of the things that Islam brings to countries is polygyny. Not polygamy. Yes, polygamy, because they marry more than one, but polygyny. What does that even mean? Let me give you an example. In Islamic countries, for example, you have the top 10% of men. That means the richest men in the country, those men have 4 wives. And they have all the concubines they can have. 10%. Remember what I'm telling you. In Islamic countries, the top 10% have 4 wives. And all the concubines, right, that they can get their grimy hands on. Then you have about 40 to 60% of middle class working men that usually have 1 wife. These are statistics that you can look up. I've looked them up, but I still have not been able to show them on my videos, because once I get all of this stuff done, then I'll start sharing all the info. But statistics show this. I mean, you can look it up, so you can verify what I'm saying. So the middle class working men will usually have 1 wife. If they can play her, they will, but they don't. Because they are, like I said, radical Muslims, and radical Muslims are not moderate, are what you would consider moderate Muslims, those that don't practice the Quran or the Hadith the way it should be practiced. Because once Muslims start practicing the Quran as it is written and the Hadith, then they go around blowing things up and killing people and knife wielding where there are no guns. Like in the UK, they will go around on stabbing sprees. But foolish Marxists, leftist Democrats in our country always go for the guns first, because if they can strip Americans of their guns, then they have no kind of defense, right? If you read the history behind the Constitution, how these amendments came about, you will realize, well, we needed guns, protect ourselves from a tyrannical government, the British at the time. Sorry, Brits, we love you. But yes, we do have history, right? And this was the reason, and this is stated as a right, okay? We have the right to a militia. We have a right to these things. But thank God that we have a strong army, a strong military in our country, okay, that defends us from foreign enemies, but also our National Guard. Thank God for them. When police don't want to do their job, well, we have a National Guard as well that would be sent in. We know this, and we've seen this already from Democrats, leftist Democrats, that just sometimes refuse to fix criminal problems that are going on in their states and in their cities. But nevertheless, the topic today is Islam, and polygyny is a real issue. Notice, top 10%, the richest men, they wind up getting most of the women. Then you got 60% of the middle class, they get 1 woman. And then 30% of men in Middle Eastern countries have no wives. Imagine the problems that causes. Let me explain to you what it causes. It causes all kinds of sexual predations. They violate women, little girls. They use little girls as child brides. Okay? If you think this is not coming to a school near you in America or a neighborhood near you, think again. It is already happening. We see it in the UK. We see it in France. The cowardly politicians that are afraid to be called names. We see it in many countries where they are bringing in wives. They're adopting them as their daughters. Put them in schools, but it's their little wives. Just like some women will bring, and parents will bring their sons because they were promised, or will bring someone else's son, a first cousin's son, over to marry their daughters, but they have to adopt them as a son in order for them to come and marry them off to their daughters. It's ridiculous, but this is what you're bringing. Polygyny, first cousin marriage. This is what you want? I'm not saying that every Muslim practices that. I'm not saying that. But you know what? You have 1.8 billion Muslims in the world, really close to the 2.3 billion Christians in the world. And let me tell you something. Christians don't practice first cousin marriages. Christians have one wife. Muslims have four, especially in countries like America in the West, or in the UK, France, and Sweden, and all these other places. They can even have 3, 4 wives and even more. Why? Because we have welfare systems that they do not have in Middle Eastern countries. So they can fully realize what the Quran says. Because you're such a dum-dum that your taxes pay for it. And you say nothing to your politicians because you don't want to get involved or be called the bigot or anything like that. We don't care. We're Americans. We could care less about your ethnicity. We could care less. We come in all shades. We believe in different things. So we can care less about that. But multiculturalism sucks. It's not the same as multi-ethnicity. And this is something that people tend to want to adhere to, multiculturalism, this idea that all cultures are the same. I'm sorry, Islamic culture is not the same. There is beauty, absolutely, in Arabic culture. I know Arabic brothers. They are kind. They are awesome friends. They're good people. I mean, their ethic is impeccable, right? But Islam kind of destroys all of this because there are other underlying factors that shape the motives of Muslims, right? Whether they're Arab, whether they're Somali, whether they're Pakistani, whether they're from Syria, Al-Iraq, Masra, Egypt, Iraq, Iran, Sudan, anywhere in from northern Africa, Libyans. I mean, you name it. Anywhere where Islam sets its foot, these are the patterns that develop: polygyny, violence, rape, and everyone afraid of what the Muslim will do if you criticize him, or criticize the Quran, or criticize their false prophet. This is still America. And I know that now Democrat politicians are into the business of jailing people for speaking their mind. But this is America. We have freedom of speech, freedom of the press. We can report, right, when incidents do occur that affect the American people, the populace. We can actually debate our ideas. This is still America. Even though leftists, Marxists are willing to kill conservatives, Christians, or whoever gets in their way, this is a serious problem. A serious problem. Ladies and gentlemen, stay away from Islam. Love the Muslim people enough to tell them the truth about Muhammad, to tell them the truth about Allah. As a Christian, I'm going to say the truth. Preach the gospel. In and out of season. You can do all of that. You can talk to Muslims whenever God gives you a chance. Be very careful. Indeed. If you debate them, whatever you do, be very careful. But nevertheless, ask God to give you wisdom on how to minister to them. Remember that as Christians, we love them, right? We love the Jewish people, God's people. We love Christians. But there is a saying in the Middle East, and Muslims know it really well. The Saturday people first, then the Sunday people. In other words, they kill the Jews first, and then they kill the Christians, because they know the Christians are a lot more people. And to be honest, for 1400 years of Islam's existence, we've been the ones really providing resistance against them and even defeating Muslims. But for 1400 years they ruled until the British broke the backs of the Ottoman Empire. And America showed in the Barbary Coast, that we are no one to fool with. That's how our Marines were formed. We put them in their place. But ladies and gentlemen, Islam, because it lacks the military might to destroy us that way, it is doing it politically. Gaddafi, the Libyan leader, said that Islam would go into every household in Europe, in America, and that they would outbreed us, basically, that they would fight jihad through the womb of their woman. They outbreed us because they marry 4 wives and they have concubines. Unfortunately, many Americans and Europeans have gotten so selfish that they rather have their sexcations more than anything else. I'm not saying all, God forbid. There are too many great Americans and Europeans and great Christians in both. But for those that can do so much more, a lot of times that's what they're involved with more than anything else. Ladies and gentlemen, be careful. Educate your children. Educate your people. Educate those in your schools if you can. If you can. Christian schools, stop being cowards. Educate students on world religions, but especially on the most dangerous one, Islam. And teach your children well in Christian academies, Christian colleges, high schools. Teach them well the gospel, but teach them scripture and teach them on world religions. Okay? Well, God bless you all. I believe probably the next video I make will be a study video on Islamic doctrines. I'll go back to that. I'm just taking a quick break. But nevertheless, I just need to talk to you about the events this week and let you know that there are patterns associated with Islamic immigration. Okay? You take care. God bless you. And may the peace of Christ be upon you. Amen. God bless you.